want a do-over in some cases, but there are no guaranteed do-overs.
No, there isn't. And, again, it can be expensive, and there can be penalties involved. So making that transition is important. And that's why my favorite product, Gold Daughter Erin, has been great in helping folks in doing that. We just love that for helping all of our clients as well as those listeners out there. Erin, we are going to talk about Medicare today, but before we do that, I certainly want to make sure that we remind everybody that we do have a wonderful newsletter. We send it out every month. We call it the Coach's Corner. How do you get it?
That's right. You log on to our website, jblfinancial.com.
Ooh, creative name.
That's right. Who could have thought of that?
Your mom.
I think Grandma thought of it, really. She liked the JB. So on the left-hand side, there's a pop-up box. You can put in your email address. We'll send the Coach's Corner out to you every single month. Or if you scroll down to the middle of the page and click Sign Up in the newsletter section, give us some additional information, name, phone number, email address. That's another way for you to sign up, so we can send it out to you every single month.
And Erin and her staff do keep the last 6 to 8 months of those archived for your reviewing, downloading, or if you need paper, your printing convenience. So, Erin, why don't we go over, again, real quickly, what are the 4 topics that we're highlighting in our newsletter this month?
What you can do with a will is the very first topic.
Cool.
I believe we discussed some of this last week, but the number one thing that you can do with a will is distribute property as you wish.
Yes, you can. And interestingly enough, it's really only the property that isn't inside retirement plans. It's property that isn't titled correctly, generally, or titled in your name, or i.e. in your spouse, is the stuff that will go through your will. Everything else goes by beneficiary designation, whether it's annuities, life insurance, retirement plans, etc. Those all go by beneficiary. So it's really the other stuff, right?
Yeah, so we're talking about heirlooms, jewelry,
if the kids don't come in and grab it.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe things that are hiding in the safety deposit box.
Or in the back cave.
Or if you happen to have a bad cave locked deep inside there. But the other thing is there are a lot of pieces of property that you can actually have a beneficiary designation on. For example, you can have a beneficiary deed on your home.
Cars.
Yeah, you can do a transfer on death on your cars. So there are many ways that you can...
And your checking accounts too, right?
That's right.
Savings accounts.
You do a transfer on death.
Accounts. So really what your will is going to do is to pick up hopefully all the other stuff. And wills actually guarantee probate.
Right, because essentially they're being read through probate.
And we know the really essential parts of the will, frankly, are kind of the dangles that go with it, right?
The durable power of attorney and the medical directives, which you really don't even need an attorney for if those are the 2 pieces that you really want to execute in terms of portions of your will, because you can get medical directives usually from your doctor's office.
Bar Association.
Exactly. You can download them online from places like LegalZoom, and they're generally pretty boilerplate documents. So unless you're trying to do something very specific, usually those, something boilerplate you both signed and then sent in generally to your physician's office is important.
Well, at the same time, I think it's important, even though they are inexpensive, having a professional scriber, i.e. a lawyer, to help you walk through your game plan and making sure that it's scripted in the correct way can be very important as well. So, and really having a living will, as we call it, because it does have those 2 dangles with it, it's not really that expensive. In a lot of companies, we were just talking to some folks the other day that have an option available through their employer.
Called prepaid legal?
Right. So they're paying maybe $300 a year for the access to attorneys, and in that, as a part of that package, they can have a will.
That's great.
Super. So if that's something that's available through your employer, do it. Not a bad.
Take advantage. $300 for a will.
Right.
Great. The second article is 10 year-end tax tips for 2017.
And I know you talked about a couple of these last week.
Yes.
I know you didn't highlight them, so this may be a repeat performance.
No, we did talk about maximizing your retirement savings last week,
cool.
HSAs, things like that. The number one tax tip is to set aside time to plan for the end of the year. And I think that really encompasses maybe many of these other tips, which is have you maximize your retirement savings? Can you defer any income to next year? Some people really don't have the ability to do that. But if you potentially do, factoring in the alternative minimum tax, so making sure that when you're filing your taxes, you're looking at it both ways, the alternative minimum versus any deductions. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the last tax tip, which is an important one, just like with legal advice, get help if you need it.
Yeah.
Tax it.
So like when you're in school.
Exactly. Please raise your hand for assistance, because I think
smart people ask questions.
Exactly. I've had to discuss this many times with open enrollment for individual health insurance having began November 1st. People are asking, how do we know if this plan is compatible with the Affordable Care Act? What are the IRS penalties? And my answer is, the plans that are on healthcare.gov are the only plans in Missouri and Illinois that are Affordable Care Act compatible. And that being said, the IRS is forgiving when errors are made, but they're not forgiving when intentional errors are made. So you want to make sure that you're following the rules in all ways that lead to the IRS.
Absolutely. And tax planning, again, while you're taking that time, and it's important to visualize, think about things, not just how to maximize tax deductions, deferring income this year, but also what's going on next year, right? Planning ahead, especially for, I think the most important one when we're planning ahead is about what I like to call capital consumption events. Whether it's vacations, whether maybe you're going to replace an automobile, whether you've got some real serious repairs at home that you need to do, either as renovations or just stuff you've been putting on.
Or many of our clients have nice milestones coming up in terms of the end of their capital consumption events. They have kids that are finishing their last year of college. That's the last expense for them. Grandkids that they're helping with college, things like that. Those also can be pretty big expenses.
Absolutely. So taking the time and thinking about them, planning ahead, and when we're looking at capital consumption events, not only for ourselves as a business owners, but also for our clients, what we like to do is say, what is it? When do we expect at this particular moment to spend that money, and then how much do we really need? Once you identify all three of those, I think you're in a good position to be able to do that.
I agree with you. The third article is 5 myths about group disability insurance.
There you go.
Myth number 1.
Myth number 1.
It won't happen to me.
Of course.
So this is the basis of all insurance, truly, the first myth being...
it's somebody else's turn next week, but then it's going to be mine maybe at some point in time.
Exactly. So is there someone phoning you?
No, because we're getting this from this... It's funny, they have this... what do they call it?
I don't know.
Old phone. It's an old telephone, a trim line.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of those phones, so we're seeing that actually it's going on.
It's live. All right.
It's live and it's local, so...
Great. The last 2 articles are how much money should a family borrow for college, and how can families trim college expenses?
Real easy.
How's that?
Plan for it.
Plan for it?
Come to the reality. I mean, what's neat is that there are obviously sources that folks can access, and a lot of folks don't think about it. Lots of sources to access for scholarships.
Right.
Also work, etc., work study, things like that. So... it's not easy to do, and then really preparing yourself, doing that FAFSA form if you think that you would be eligible for some type of assistance for either from the university or from the government, and then really then considering what are the lowest costs, what are the lowest places that I can borrow from to get that. A lot of folks go to their 401k, right, which is like,
Please, no. Also, the other thing is that we're talking about how much money should a family borrow for college, or how can families modify expenses. That's really changed from a nuclear family where parents are dealing with their children's college expenses, or they're having their kids are the ones that are going to be dealing with it, to potentially grandparents are helping. So it's really important, I think, to consult with a professional before you make decisions on how even you're going to start saving for college for children in the future, grandchildren in the future, because there are ways that you can still utilize FAFSA money and also put money aside without having them